Good morning, students. The topic I am going to discuss with you today is about the importance of biodiversity and conservation. I am DR.S.ANGELINA PARIMAL from the PG and Research Department of Zoology, A.D.M. College for Women, NAGAPATTINAM. Let us see the definition. What is biodiversity? Biological diversity or biodiversity is the differences and variety between the living organisms of all sources. It includes all terrestrial, that is land dwelling, marine, that is aquatic, and other different ecosystems and ecological complexes. It is an important phenomenon in natural as well as artificial ecosystems. It deals with nature's variety, the biosphere. It refers to the variabilities among plants, animals, and microorganisms. The term biodiversity was first coined by Walter G. Rosen in 1986. Biological diversity, abbreviated as biodiversity, represent the sum total of various life forms such as unicellular fungi, protozoa, bacteria, and multicellular organisms such as plants, fishes, and mammals at various biological levels. It indicates all inherited variations of living organisms living in a broad area. The next is about the concept of biodiversity. Biodiversity is the variety of life on earth. For any kind of animal or plant, each individual is not exactly the same as any other, nor are species or ecosystems. All these diversities help in keeping the balance in nature. But slowly, there has been the loss of biodiversity. The loss of biodiversity can badly affect our environment as the balance is lost and the natural food chain is disturbed. So as we realize its significance in our existence, biodiversity conservation has now become a matter of high significance. The next is about the types of biodiversity. There are three types of biodiversity. They are genetic biodiversity, species biodiversity, and ecosystem biodiversity. Number one is about the genetic diversity. Genetic diversity works as a way for populations to adjust to changing environments. With more differences, it is more likely that certain individuals in a population will have variations of alleles that are right for the environment. It is expressed at the genetic level by every single person in a species. It is distinguished from genetic inconsistency, which describes the tendency of genetic features to differ. Those individuals are more expected to survive to yield offsprings bearing that allele. The population will continue for extra generations because of the success of these individuals. No two individuals of the same species are accurately similar. For instance, humans show a lot of biodiversity between themselves. People living in different areas show a great level of differences. It refers to the variations among the genetic resources of the organisms. Every individual of a particular species differs from each other in their genetic constitution. That is why every human look different from each other. Similarly, there are different varieties in the same species of rice, wheat, maize, barley, and other varieties of plants. The diagram shows the diversion in the genetic variations. The next is about the species diversity. It is the biodiversity seen within a community. It signifies the number and distribution of species. The number of species in an area varies broadly according to the environmental surroundings. For instance, it is usually observed that a human society living nearby the water bodies display more species than the one compared to the areas far from water bodies. The effective number of species refers to the number of similar copious species needed to obtain the same mean proportional species abundance as that is seen in the data set of interest. It is the biodiversity at the most basic level. It includes all the species ranging from plants to different microorganisms. Species diversity contains three components: species taxonomic richness or phylogenetic variety and species consistency. Species richness is a common count of species Taxonomic or phylogenetic diversity is the genetic relationship among the different groups of species, whereas species consistency quantifies how equal the abundances of the species are present in that area. The diagram explains about the species biodiversity. The next is about the ecological diversity. An ecosystem is a collection of living and non-living organisms and their interaction with each other. Ecological biodiversity refers to the variations in the plant and animal species living together and connected by food chains and food webs. It is the diversity seen between the ecosystems in a region. Several ecosystems like rainforests, deserts, mangroves, etc. show a vast diversity of life forms living in them. It is the diversity seen between the ecosystems in a region. Keeping both kinds of diversity is functional to the working of ecosystems and therefore to human welfare. India is one of the 12 centers of diversity and origin of numerous cultivated plants in the world. It is expected that 15,000 species of plants arise in India. The flowering plants contain 15,000 species, which some 5,000 to 7,500 species are common to India. That region is also rich in fauna, holding about 65,000 species of animals. Among them, more than 4,000 mollusks, 50,000 species of insects, 2,000 fishes, 140 amphibians, 420 reptiles, 6,500 other invertebrates, 1,200 birds and 340 mammals are documented from India. This abundance in biological diversity is due to a huge variety of climatic and altitudinal conditions combined with diverse ecological habitats. The diagram shows ecosystem biodiversity. India has one of the biggest ecosystem diversity, ranging from the deserts, plains, hills, mangroves, rainforests to cold Himalayas. The next is about the distribution of biodiversity. Biodiversity is not evenly distributed, rather it varies greatly across the globe as well as within regions. Terrestrial biodiversity is thought to be up to 25 times greater than ocean biodiversity. The study of the spatial distribution of organisms, species and ecosystem is the science of biogeography. Healthy biodiversity delivers many natural services for everyone. They include ecosystem services like soil formation and protection, nutrient storage and recycling, pollution breakdown and absorption, protection of water resources, contribution to climate stability, maintenance of ecosystems, recovery from unpredictable events, biological resources, food, future resources, medicinal resources and pharmaceutical drugs, ornamental plants, wood products, diversity in genes, species and ecosystems, breeding stocks, population reservoirs, social benefits, research, education and monitoring, recreation and tourism and cultural values. Biodiversity includes the number of different organisms and their relative frequencies in an ecosystem. It also reflects the organization of organisms at different levels. Biodiversity holds ecological and economical significance. It provides nourishment, housing, fuel, clothing and several other resources. It also extracts monetary benefits through tourism. Therefore, it is very important to have a good knowledge of biodiversity for a sustainable livelihood. The next is about the threats to biodiversity. Number one is habitat destruction. Important to protect habitat in order to protect biodiversity within it. Huge pressure from the world's rapidly increasing population. Global climate change. Change in the biotic elements of ecosystem leading to biotic change. The next is habitat fragmentation. It is from human activity. It reduces ability of habitat to support species. The next is about pollution. Introduction of pollutants such as nutrient overloading with nitrate fertilizer as well as more immediately harmful chemicals. The next is overexploitation. This includes the illegal wildlife trade as well as overfishing, logging of tropical hardwoods, etc. The next is alien species. It is introduced by humans to regions where there are no natural predators. The last one is disease. Reduction in habitat causing high population densities encourages spread of diseases. The diagram shows the destruction of forest by various human activities. There are natural causes to habitat destruction through natural processes such as volcanism, fire and climate change is well documented in the fossil record. One study shows that fragmentation of tropical rainforest in Euro 3000 million years ago led to a great loss of amphibian diversity. The diagram shows the different natural calamities. What are the solutions? The solutions to protect biodiversity, it is need to protect the remaining intact section of natural habitat by reducing human population and expansion of urbanization and industries, educating the public about the importance of natural habitat and biodiversity. Other solutions to habitat loss can include planting trees, planting home gardens so as to reduce need for man to need large lands for agriculture farms, which led to habitat loss. The next is about poaching. Poaching is the hunting and harvesting, taking of wild animals or plants such as through hunting, harvesting, fishing or trapping. Millions of years ago in the Stone Age followed through the ages to even the tribal natives. But it was during the late Middle Ages that poaching became a punishable offense. Poaching is done for large profits gained by the illegal sale or trade of animal parts, meat and pets. Exists because there is a demand for these products caused by a lack of education or disregard for the law among us the buyers. Many cultures believe that certain animal parts have medicinal values. Poaching or illegal hunting causes animals endangered of being extinct. If more animals becomes extinct, there is a disruption in the food chain and that will cause major problems in our ecosystem, resulting eventually in new adaptations of animals and of species beyond human control. Poaching results in animals being hunted too soon for them to have time to reproduce and repopulate. Diagram shows the different poaching occur in different areas. The next one is recent issues on biodiversity. Some 75% of the genetic biodiversity of crop plant been lost in the past century. Some scientists estimate that as many as 3 species per hour are going extinct and 20,000 extinctions occur every year. Roughly 1/3 of the world's coral reef systems have been destroyed or highly degraded. About 24% of mammals and 12% of bird species are currently considered to be globally threatened. More than 50% of the world's wetlands have been drained and populations of inland water and wetland species have declined by 50% between 1970 and 1999. The next is about the conservation of biodiversity. Biodiversity conservation refers to the protection, upliftment and management of biodiversity in order to derive sustainable benefits for present and future generations. The next is about the need of biodiversity conservation. There is a need to conserve the biodiversity to restoration, imparting environmental education, enacting, strengthening and enforcing environmental legislation, population control, reviewing the agriculture practice, controlling urbanization, conservation through biotechnology. Biodiversity conservation has 3 main objectives: to preserve the diversity of species, sustainable utilization of species and ecosystem, to maintain life supporting systems and essential ecological processes. Biodiversity and its conservation methods, it refers to the variability of life on earth. It can be conserved in following ways: in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. In situ conservation of biological diversity is the conservation of species within their natural habitat. In this method, the natural ecosystem is maintained and protected. The in situ conservation has several advantages. Following are the important advantages we can see in the in situ conservation. It is a cost effective and convenient method of conserving biodiversity. A large number of living organisms can be conserved simultaneously. Since the organisms are in a natural ecosystem, They can evolve better and can easily adjust to different environmental conditions. Let us have a detailed look at biodiversity and its conservation notes to explore the strategies and concepts of biodiversity conservation. Certain protected areas where in situ conservation takes place include national parks, wildlife sanctuaries and biosphere reserves. First is about the national parks. These are small reserves maintained by the government. Its boundaries are well demarcated and human activities such as grazing, forestry, habitat and cultivation are prohibited. For example, Kanka National Park and Bantipur National Park. The next is about wildlife sanctuaries. These are the regions where only wild animals are found. Human activities such as timber harvesting, cultivation, collection of woods and other forest products are allowed here as long as they do not interfere with the conservation project. Also, tourists visit these places for recreation. Biosphere reserves are multi-purpose protected areas where the wildlife, traditional life cycle of the inhabitants and domesticated plants and animals are protected. Tourist and research activities are permitted here. The next is about ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation of biodiversity involves the breeding and maintenance of endangered species in artificial ecosystems such as zoos, nurseries, botanical gardens, gene banks, etc. There is less competition for food, water and space among the organisms. Ex situ conservation has the following advantages. The animals are provided with a longer time and breeding activity. The species bred in captivity can be reintroduced in the wild. Genetic techniques can be used for the preservation of endangered species. The next is about the strategies of biodiversity conservation. Important strategies are all the varieties of food, timber, plants, livestock, microbes and agriculture animals should be conserved. All the economically important organisms should be identified and conserved. Unique ecosystems should be preserved first. The resources should be utilized efficiently. Poaching and hunting of wild animals should be prevented. The reserves and protected areas should be developed carefully. The levels of pollutants should be reduced in the environment. Deforestation should be strictly prohibited. Environmental laws should be followed strictly. The useful and endangered species of plants and animals should be conserved in the nature as well as artificial habitats. Public awareness should be created regarding biodiversity conservation and its importance. Why should we conserve biodiversity? It is believed that an area with higher species abundance has a more stable environment compared to an area with lower species abundance. We can further claim the necessity of biodiversity by considering our degree of dependency on the environment. We depend directly on various species of plants for our various needs. Similarly, we depend on various species of animals and microbes for different reasons. The next is about the functions and significance of biodiversity. Biodiversity has a number of functions on the earth. These are as follows: maintaining the balance of the ecosystem, recycling and storage of nutrients, combating pollution, stabilizing climate, protecting water resources, forming and protecting soil and maintaining eco-balance. Provision of biological resources. It includes medicines and pharmaceuticals, food for the human population and animals, ornamental plants, wood products, breeding stock and diversity of species, ecosystems and genes. Social benefits, recreation and tourism, cultural value and education and research. The next is about the significance of biodiversity. Biodiversity is the wealth of the nation. It comprises all plants, animals and microbes. It supplies food. It supplies oxygen for our breathing. It maintains a balance of oxygen for our breathing. It maintains a balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. It supplies drugs. It brings rain. It maintains climate and it enriches resources. Conclusion. To conclude, biodiversity conservation is a protection and management of biodiversity to obtain resources for sustainable development. It is being lost due to the loss of habitat, over-exploitation of resources, climatic changes, pollution, invasive exotic species, diseases, hunting, etc. Since it provides us with several economic and ethical benefits and adds aesthetic value, it is very important to conserve biodiversity. Thank you.